Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Wednesday evening to you all. Hope you all had an awesome day out there and having yourselves a great last week of 2022. Already at the end of another year, about to enter the 2023, and we're expecting some pretty active weather as we get into the new year, maybe a day or two after New Year's Day. Certainly eyeballing that kind of first to second of January kind of time frame. So we're going to talk about that. That'll take up a lot of this video, but we're going to work our way to that time frame because tomorrow I'm expecting some severe weather across portions of the country also. And then I'm expecting a pretty soggy New Year's Eve for a lot of folks along the eastern U.S. I know a lot of people have probably a lot of activities planned. So we're going to give you an update on that. Talk about how much rain we can see, who all can see rain. Certainly going to be a very wet ending to the year for a lot of folks. And I know a lot of people like to do outdoor things and things like that, or just be out and about. So the weather is certainly going to impact your plans for sure. So we're here to figure it all out. We're going to work through all the details. We're going to work what's closest to us and then what's further away, which is that severe weather event. So of course, we'll put timestamps in this if you want to skip ahead to certain parts of the video. But this could be a significant storm as we get into the new year. So if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. I just got a new mic in the mail today, so I'll hook that up this weekend, and hopefully the audio will sound a little bit better. It's a process, folks. We're continuously upgrading this channel and trying to make it a little bit better for you folks, the audience. But you know, you folks are always saying some very comforting comments and just certainly showing the support that it's okay the way it is. But I know I'm trying to just make this a little bit better for the audience. But certainly is a process, and we'll get there as we do, and I really appreciate the support regardless. But if you folks got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below so I can pray over it, and so others can do so too. So let's get working here. So this video is not going to be a winter weather lovers fan. We talked about how warm it can be in last night's video. Definitely nothing's really changed with that as far as temperatures, so check that out if you're wondering how warm it can be. But I'm going to tell you, we're going to be well above average for much of the country. Central to eastern U.S., the ridge is going to flex. We certainly are going to have a lot of Pacific air that's going to flood into the lower 48, which means above average temperatures. And the return of moisture, which means more humid air. So what we got going on right now, a big system had entered the west. We're going to continue to have systems that enter off the Pacific Ocean into the western U.S. And this system right here is going to promote some severe weather across eastern Texas, and maybe even areas of Arkansas and Louisiana tomorrow into tomorrow evening. So we'll talk about that first, and check it out. We just got a marginal risk. We'll see if this upgrades to a slight. I would not be surprised if this upgrades to a slight risk. This is for tomorrow. And right now, you just have a level 1 out of 5. This is a tornado risk of just a 2% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in any given location. Not a high threat, but you never know. Wind threat, 5% risk of damaging winds occurring within 25 miles in any given location, and not much of a hail threat tomorrow. So really what we're looking at for tomorrow is this low pressure. This evening is coming off the Rockies and will begin to kind of skirt itself across the middle of the country. We'll bring an area of some snow across the central plains, just enough cold air for some of this to be in the form of snow. Most of it will be on the colder side of this. This will just bring kind of a stripe of 1 to as much as 3 inches of snow through maybe areas of eastern Colorado through Nebraska for tomorrow midday through the afternoon hours, and then work its way in maybe a period of snow for areas like Minneapolis as we get into late tomorrow night into tomorrow morning. But with this, we'll back it up here. This little low pressure is going to yank up some low-level moisture and going to pretty much pull up some ingredients, a sector of ingredients that could support some severe weather across this area of the country tomorrow. So if you're in eastern Texas, certainly need to watch out for some severe weather. And certainly you can see how this yanks up this low-level moisture. This is the HRRR model. We'll start this off sometime later tonight into the wee hours of the morning. You'll already notice, you'll go to sleep and it won't feel too bad in like areas like Dallas, Shreveport, and then you'll wake up tomorrow and you'll notice there's a little bit more humidity to the air. As we're waking up tomorrow, the sun is rising in Shreveport. The dew points are starting to rise into the 60s, and that's certainly that air you can certainly feel. Not air you can wear necessarily. We certainly associate that with more of dew points in the 70s, but this is going to be some humid air, certainly compared to what we've seen. And we have just a a sector of moist air, a warm sector, if you will, that's getting pulled up from this little surface low that's firing off across the middle of the country. So with this, you're going to have the return of moisture, and these dew points will continue to spike in this area. Dew points will rise into the mid 60s, maybe some upper 60s in certain areas in this region of eastern Texas, Louisiana. The entire state of Louisiana is going to be quite humid for late December standards tomorrow. And with that, we'll look at the latest HRRR model. We'll start this off this evening, and you already will have a moisture return into areas as far north as maybe Memphis. Some showers you're waking up to tomorrow morning. And look at this little low pressure, this little surface low. It's not super strong, but it's there. And it's snowing in eastern Colorado, far northwest areas of Kansas, and getting into Nebraska. And then as we're waking up tomorrow morning, you already will have some shower activity from Little Rock down to Shreveport to most of Louisiana, Baton Rouge, New Orleans. And then as we get into the afternoon hours, look how these storms quickly begin to form. And then I think there'll be a 1 to 3 hour period of maybe a semi-discrete mode where maybe you can get an isolated supercell or two, and then that's when we have to worry about maybe a tornado warning or two out here. But this quickly goes to what we call a linear mode, which means these storms kind of congeal together in eastern Texas, maybe Austin, Texas, just any small towns or communities in eastern Texas need to watch out for some severe storms late tomorrow evening. And then this will try to consolidate into more, like I said, a line of storms. And we're getting into about like 11 p.m. tomorrow night. And you got some pretty rocky weather in the far eastern sections of Texas, getting into the Shreveport area, northern areas of Louisiana, southern sections of Arkansas. And this continues throughout the overnight hours into the wee hours of the morning. It starts to knock on the door of Memphis in the form of probably just some showers, maybe a rumble of thunder. But this is maintaining intact down here as it enters that Louisiana Mississippi state line, and maybe some storms waking up Friday morning into Jackson, Mississippi and surrounding areas, especially points south. Same thing down in the Baton Rouge for Friday morning. But not expecting a big severe weather threat with this, but it could trend to a slight risk overnight. So moving forward here, we're getting into the 30th into the 31st, New Year's Eve. As this low pressure continues to kind of track into Canada, another low pressure will develop, and this will bring more moisture Friday into areas like Memphis, the Mississippi Valley, western sections of the Deep South, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi. And this rides over the entire Deep South, the Mid-South, and this is the morning of the 31st, New Year's Eve morning. It's very wet. It's starting off very wet across the Deep South, all the Deep South states, the Gulf states, the Panhandle of Florida, Tennessee, Kentucky, very wet now. Of course, this is looking more widespread on the GFS. We'll take a look at this short-range model probably tomorrow night, and we'll get a better idea of who's actually seeing rain around this time frame. But moving forward here, we're getting into about midday New Year's Eve, and it is just pouring down rain in the foothills and the mountains of North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee, and North Georgia. Low pressure riding ahead. You already know when these low pressures are riding this far ahead that you're getting a lot of warm, moist air into the southeast. And this is what we call a cutter. Low pressures are just cutting across the country, and this usually means when the jet stream is dipping out west, or either it's just way far up north. This continues. This delivers rain for Cleveland. We're getting into the last day of the year. We're getting into New Year's Eve evening when everybody's starting the festivities and stuff and bringing in the new year. It is going to be soggy from Detroit to Cleveland to Buffalo. All rain in Buffalo. Rain falling on snowpack in Buffalo. Rain for all the major towns and cities. If it's not raining, it'll just be soggy and cloudy and probably just have a little bit more juice to the air, if you will. It certainly won't feel like winter much. And, you're just bringing in the new year of really damp and soggy. And then we're getting into, just around when the ball is dropping in New York City, it's going to be raining more than likely. So if you got any activities up there in the big cities of the I-95 corridor, we will be bringing in the new year with rain. Low pressure is tracking so far north that even the higher elevations of the interior northeast, it's raining. So there's going to be some rapid snow melt. A lot of snow fell in certain areas in the Great Lakes region. This might actually cause some flooding risk, but we'll see how this happens. But this moves through. Even rain for Maine as we're getting into January 1st. So pretty wild to see here, but, it just happens. But rainfall for the 29th, which is tomorrow, We have a slight risk of flash flooding occurring. This is a 15% risk of flash flood guidance being met. So not very high, but we will have a risk of some storms going over the same regions in this area right here in Arkansas, Louisiana, and far eastern sections of Texas. And then we go into day 3, which is the 30th. And then the threat of flooding really begins to increase for areas a little bit further east into the southern sections of the Gulf states like Birmingham, Montgomery, Alabama, Jackson, Mississippi, Mobile, Alabama, and Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and then the western panhandle of Florida, where you basically have a slight risk, that 15% risk of flash flood guidance being met. Rainfall between now and we'll take it all the way through New Year's. This is starting off around the 30th, and look how the rain begins to increase. We'll just go on and take it all the way out through the evening of January 1st. Not a lot of rain in the Northeast, but it's just going to come in a very unfavorable time, for New Year's Eve and things like that. I know for me, I don't even make it up to midnight on New Year's Eve. I haven't made it up to midnight on New Year's Eve, I think, in about 10 years. It's just not a big deal to me. My goals and desires all remain the same. I just continue to try to just become a better person and just continue to build on the goals that I had for the years previous. But there is something rejuvenating about the new year. But my butt ain't about to stay up all the way till midnight. That is well past my bedtime. I don't care if it's New Year's or not. And luckily I'm married to a woman that completely agrees. She doesn't give a rip about it either. So we'll probably be in bed at 8:30, 9 o'clock. But anyways, that's not everybody's definitely taste, and I totally get it. You want to bring in the new year with style, but a lot of rain for the couple days leading up. Basically, the last couple days of this year will be very wet leading into January 1st. You could get widespread 1 to as much as 3 inches of rain for the deep south, and then maybe a corridor of heavier rain for the Mississippi Valley into areas of southern Illinois and Indiana. This is just going to be a totally different pattern. We're not expecting winter weather at all. But moving past this system, here goes the system we just talked about. It's moving away. A mid-level trough, strong one at that, digs into the western U.S. And with it, a low-pressure surface low will probably ride the boundary of the trough. And as this does, we're getting into the morning of the 2nd. And I will tell you, there could be a severe weather threat for January 1st. Also, a low pressure sitting here. There's definitely some disagreement right now where the low pressure will be. I can tell you, this is going to bring a ton of heavy snow for all the mountains of the Rockies, the Sahara Nevada. I saw a graphic today for areas of Sahara Nevada could pick up over 100 inches of snow in a very short amount of time. So ski country is certainly going to be going wild out here in the west. And the same system is going to bring severe weather. We're getting into the morning of the 2nd. And I can tell you already have a big giant moisture return, basically a sector of very moist air, warm air building into the south central and deep south. And this is just going to bring the ingredients needed for severe weather. Low pressure, you see it right here, begins to deepen. We got a sub 990 low pressure, much stronger than the one that came before it that's about to ride over the country tomorrow. And as this deepens, it gets as strong as a 981 millibar low pressure according to the GFS. So it's a very strong low pressure. This could bring a winter storm for areas of the Rockies, Wyoming, maybe Nebraska, and areas of the Dakotas and the Montana. We have to watch this. This, depending on how this sets up, it could bring blizzard conditions, but we just got to figure this part out of it. So there's going to be a wintry side of this, and we see this very often. There's going to be a severe side with this low pressure riding across the middle of the country. It's bringing, in general, southerly winds. Low-level moisture is going to increase, and just a big moisture return. And all these areas you see in green and dark green and yellow could have severe weather. And we'll have to see how it develops. Of course, we're not in short-range guidance, but all threats are on the table. We just don't know how the storm mode is going to unfold, and we won't know that for probably a few more days at least, at minimum. But I can tell you, for January 1st, you have a potential is too low. So it mentions in the discussion down here, if I was to scroll down here, it mentions that there is going to probably be a potential for severe weather for New Year's Day. But really, as we get into the 2nd, this is the time frame we have to worry about. You now have a slight risk at day 6, which is pretty uncommon, but we've already seen this multiple times this year. But this is obviously going into 2023. A slight risk has been issued. That's basically a level 2 out of 5 at day 6. So 15% risk to see severe weather. And this is a lot of cities that have already dealt with severe weather episodes over the last several weeks. You're going to be under the gun again. So confidence is increasing that this is in fact going to happen. And talking about that low-level moisture, let's talk about this winds about 5,000 feet up in the air first. So as you can tell, this is actually the deep digging mid-level trough that digs down. I mean, it digs all the way down to the desert southwest. And normally when we see this kind of setup, it surges winds out the south and it's pulling in all this low-level moisture. And this little low pressure begins to develop. And it could notch and potentially become negatively tilted, but I don't like to just throw the words negatively tilted out lightly, because when things become negatively tilted, things can become very dangerous. But it could be a very dangerous severe weather set up regardless of how the tilt is. It really can. We've seen that over the last several weeks, that it doesn't have to be negatively tilted. And if you don't know what I mean by that, we have a positively tilted trough, neutrally tilted trough, and a negatively tilted trough. So usually that negative tilt is the worst. That's when we have some of our worst and dynamic weather in bad ways. So in this situation, we don't know what the tilt's going to be, but we got to watch this sector. These mid-level winds are screaming at 60, 70, 80 knots, way up in the upper levels of the atmosphere. And this is probably going to be an intense low-level jet, which we'll show in a second. But there's going to be a lot of what we call kinematics, which is that wind pattern, the favorable wind pattern you need, wind energy you need for severe weather in this section right here. But how will the thermodynamics set up, which is that low-level moisture, the dew points, the temperatures? And here we go. As this mid-level trough digs into this region, and immediately we're getting into the morning of January 1st. And then as we get into the morning of January 2nd, look at this huge moist sector building all the way into Oklahoma. Dew points climbing all the way to above 60 in Oklahoma City. Based off the latest GFS, we get into Monday midday into the afternoon hours. You got dew points showing up into the 70s in Louisiana, Mississippi, and dew points well into the mid-60s, which is certainly supportive of severe weather. This is a lot of low-level moisture with this massive, basically what we call moist sector or warm sector building all the way up into Iowa. So basically where the best overlapping of the kinematics and thermodynamics is where the best severe weather threat's going to be. Or the worst severe weather threat's going to be. And that's what they're saying, that's going to be right in here. But it's a huge area right now, so they're just still unsure. But, I can tell you thermodynamics fit in with temperatures also. And this is around temperatures around midday for Monday the 2nd, based off the GFS, well into the 70s, all the way into Oklahoma, Arkansas, and getting close to 80 degrees in sections of Texas and Louisiana. So it's going to be warm. And, man, I can tell you, the warm pattern, For winter weather fans, and I've just decided to turn my head to it because it's kind of depressing, but I mean, it's weather. I mean, the weather's going to do whatever it wants to do, but I tell you what, we're probably going to burn up at least the first 10 days of January on nothing but well above average temperatures. And normally when we have these huge Arctic blasts, usually what follows it is a very warm pattern, and it allows for Pacific air to flood into the U.S., and that's certainly what's probably going to happen in this case. But the low-level jet in this case is going to be 50 to 60 knots potentially. This is basically the winds at about a mile and some change up in the atmosphere, and that mixed in with this low-level moisture. There's probably going to be Cape levels that are going to reach well over 1,000 joules per kilogram. We're thinking, especially in response to such high dew points. The higher the dew points, the more these Cape levels can rise. Cape meaning this fuel to these storms that we have out here. And basically, just there's going to be an area. I think you got to watch out Arkansas. I think this might be the epicenter as of now, but this is going to pivot back and forth. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, but we're going to figure this out for you folks, and as we get closer, we'll learn more. But there's going to be a snowy side of this. This little stripe of accumulating snow is based off the system that happens tomorrow. We'll talk more on that tomorrow morning. But all the snow you see, like right here, this is from the storm system that we're watching that could bring severe weather for this part of the country. So we're seeing how this is going to trend, how much snow could potentially fall with this, but we are expecting another snow event for the western Dakotas, Wyoming. We have to see how intense it's going to be. If it becomes negatively tilted, then it could become a lot of winds with this system, and it could become very dynamic, which means blizzard conditions. But we'll see what happens. That's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all, and I'll have you a video in the morning.